live from Whitney Media, 1460 WVOX, The Greenberg Report with Greenberg Town Supervisor Paul Feiner. You can join in the conversation at 914-636-0110. Now on 1460 WVOX, here's Greenberg Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Good morning, Westchester. I'm Paul Feiner. I'm the Greenberg Town Supervisor, and we have a very interesting program today. We're going to be talking with a relatively new organization. It's the Organization of Public Service Retirees. And my first guest is Marianne Pizzitola. And Marianne, could you maybe start by just telling us a little bit about the organization, what your organization does, and who you represent?
Sure. Good morning, and thank you for having us. So we held our first meeting in August of 2021 to try to found an organization, to start this organization purposely to help defend or protect retiree benefits. Our initial email went out to about 30 people, 17 showed up to the first meeting, 5 volunteered to hold positions. That was Friday, August 13th. By the 17th, I had filed documents with the state of New York to incorporate an organization that was registered by the 31st. Within days, I think it was the 19th of August, we set up our Facebook page, PayPal account, and to fundraise. We're interviewing attorneys. And it just took off from there, literally like a great snowball. I mean, it just got really big, really fast. So from August 13th, 14th, 15th, around that time till today, we have over 13,000 people on our Facebook page, almost 6,000 people on our email list via our website. And we represent over 250,000 retirees of all different positions and agencies from New York City.
And I know there's a lot of Westchester residents who are public service retirees.
Yes, absolutely. There's a large population is in New York State. We do have retirees around the country, but yes, a large population in Westchester.
Great.
We're bringing you two today, at least.
And New York City has been cutting some of the benefits for some of the retirees, and is that a concern?
Yeah, so one of the issues is, the issue that started this was that the City of New York and the Municipal Labor Committee, under the chair, Harry Foley, made an agreement to create a Medicare Advantage plan and forced all city retirees into that plan, making that their basic plan, and the plan that we were also in the GHI Emblem Health Plan. Now, if we choose to stay in that plan, would now come with a very high premium of almost $200 a month, and that would be per Medicare eligible retiree. So that's what caused us to fight for this, because we felt, based on everything we knew, that there is no entity that would represent a retiree. After I retired from the New York City Fire Department, I went back to college, finished my relations degree, and everything I've been taught is that unions can only represent people with wages, hours, and work conditions. I've been retired a long time. We have retirees in our page, in our membership, that are retired 30, 40 years. They have never heard of the Municipal Labor Committee. I have never received so much as a letter, a membership card, or a calendar from them, and yet they felt it was okay to make this negotiation with the City of New York and strip a benefit from us that we've had for over 40 years.
Right, and I guess many of the retirees felt when they entered the workforce, there was an agreement that they would get benefits, and now it's being taken away. So are there,
Correct.
I guess, they're being taken away without their consent, and I guess some people who go into public service or civil service jobs take the jobs because they like the lifetime benefits.
Well, of course. I mean, we knew that our private sector counterparts had a higher income than we did. We also knew that during the course of our collective bargaining years, we accepted years of 0-0 interest, 0-0 raises on our contracts. I could not. I would never have thought about giving all those things up and then have a.
We have to take a break, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. So I'm with Marianne Pizzitola, who is with the New York City, with the Organization of Public Service Retirees. I'm Paul Feiner. We'll be right back in 5 minutes.
Now, back to the Greenberg Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenberg Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Good morning. I'm Paul Feiner, and my guest is Marianne Pizzitola of the Organization of Public Service Retirees, and she also has a retiree who is on the phone with her. But before we go on with questions to the retiree, is your organization only deal with New York City or state retirees as well?
Yes, our organization is for New York City retirees.
So it doesn't deal with New York State government?
No. We get calls from time to time that they are also experiencing the same thing, and they're looking for guidance or help. We are helping them. We give them information, some guidance, telling them how we started and what we are doing. But this seems to be systemic. This doesn't seem to be something that's just affecting New York City retirees alone.
Right. You have one of the retirees on the line, and could he tell us a little bit about his experiences and what upsets him?
Yes, I'll introduce you to him. He is a retired New York City high school teacher. He had been a teacher for over 35 years, and he'd like to share, his concerns with you as well. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. I want to thank Marianne and our organization very much for bringing this to light, and to thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk about it. As Marianne said, this is something that pretty much came out of nowhere. I found out about it over the summer on Facebook. Had it not been for that, I wouldn't have known that New York City was trying to do this. Basically pull a fast one on its most vulnerable population, the retirees, many of us who don't have Internet access or the ability to find out things in a timely manner. That's the one thing that got to me, rubbed me at first, that, wow, look, they're coming after the retirees, these people who can't really defend themselves. Second of all, financial burden, not only to myself, but to everyone else who now has to pay to have their health insurance, which was promised to us. I remember when I was in college, I was a junior, I was an education major, and the department would get together because the New York City Board of Ed was sending someone down to talk to us. We'd all gather in the auditorium, and the whole spiel basically was to say, well, you guys, you're in it for the passion, but just think, for the rest of your life, you'll have the Cadillac of health care. You'll get eyeglasses every 2 years. You'll have dental. You'll have the best coverage possible. At that time, it was GHI Type E, which is the one everybody flocked to. When I retired, it was a smooth transition into GHI Senior Care, and I've never had a problem. I've had I'm not happy to say, I've had 22 procedures in my life, and never once has there been a bump in the road. And now I have to face a panel of people deciding whether or not it's absolutely necessary. It could take well over a week to go back and forth. And what this new plan does, essentially, is it beats you down. And that's how they make their money, by denying us retirees superior coverage. So those two things, the fact that they're hitting upon a very vulnerable population, which in and of itself could be seen as age discrimination, and then the financial burden. They promised this to us, and now they're going back against their promise. So I'm very upset about this.
So could you maybe highlight how this is, what New York City is doing, is impacting your life, financially?
Well, financially, and I'll be honest with you, I am going to opt out, which it's crazy because normally you opt into these things. You don't opt out, which there's a red flag right there. I've had to readjust my finances, and I recently lost my dad, who I was caring for, and now I have my mom that I'm taking care of. It's all out-of-pocket expenses that are hitting me now. So I've had to cut back in preparation for this. And my hope, and many of us other retirees are hoping, that this whole issue should be brought up front in the next contract negotiation. Why do this now to us that you're reneging against a promise? This is something that should be negotiated in a new contract and just grandfather us in. This is what we were promised, and it's just not fair. It's ethically, it stinks. It was not transparent from the get-go. Apparently, this has been going on for, I think, 4 years, these dealings, unbeknownst to us, especially not the retirees, that's for sure. And I've had to readjust my finances. Fortunately, I'm able to do that, but many people aren't. I know many of my colleagues are paraprofessionals, retired paraprofessionals, and their pension is, well, it's shameful. It's so low, and it also impacts to a large degree against people of color, because many people of color were paraprofessionals, and they're disproportionately going to suffer from this.
Yeah, we have to take one more break, and
okay.
We'll be back.
Thank you.
Talking about the Organization of Public Service Retirees. So, Mariana, could you please stay on the line, and we'll be back in a few minutes. I'm Paul Feiner, Greenberg Town Supervisor.
WVOX. Now back to the Greenberg Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenberg Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Okay, brother.
Barry, if he's done with you, you can either drop off or
Paul Feiner. I'm the Greenberg.
I'm going to hold on.
Oh, hi, I'm Paul Feiner. I'm the Greenberg Town Supervisor, and we have a very interesting discussion today with the Organization of Public Service Retirees. My guest is Marianne Pizzitola. Marianne, thank you very much for joining us. And could you tell us if there's been any legal action?
Yes, actually. We filed our lawsuit in Manhattan Supreme Court, and this has been going on now since October.
And when do you think there'll be a decision, by the courts?
Well, we've been before the judge a few times. He had initially implemented a restraining order that the city could not implement this plan because of the way that they had implemented was filled with errors and misinformation, and the way that it was rolled out didn't allow retirees to make an informed, educated decision. So he gave them until, he gave a tentative date of April 1st for implementation, and that would only be if the city and the Alliance, which is the name of the joint company between Emblem and Empire Blue Cross Blue Shield, if they've met all the benchmarks that the judge had put into place. So we're waiting to see that, and then we will be able to then go into the next phase of the lawsuit, which is to argue the merits of our case that this should not be implemented against us, that we should have the choice of which Medicare plan we wanted to be in, the one that we've always had for 40 years, and not pay a penalty premium of almost $200 a person in order to stay in the plan we've had.
Do you know if there's any other municipalities in the nation that are doing the same thing that New York City did?
Yes, we hear about that all the time, and you'll hear statistics like 42% of the country, Medicare-eligible seniors, are in a Medicare Advantage plan. Well, it's kind of misleading because a lot of municipalities are doing exactly this, and you ask, why would they do this? Because the federal government picks up the tab for the Medicare premium. So if the federal government is paying for a Medicare Advantage plan, that would, of course, be the impetus of why they would want to do that, because it's less money out of their pockets. But in a situation with us, that savings, even the Independent Budget Office has said in the City Council hearing going back to October, that savings isn't a real savings because the city promised that money right back to the unions. So it's really not a savings to the taxpayer.
Okay, let's hear from Larry. Larry, I'm Paul Funder.
Yeah. Hello?
Hi, Larry.
Yeah, hi. I'm listening to the broadcast relative to the Medicare Advantage plan that they're trying to implement on us.
Right. And what's your question?
Am I on the air?
Yes.
Am I on the air right now?
You're on the air.
This was an incredibly cynical move by the city of New York. They and unfortunately our labor leaders collaborating with them. They made a deal with the de Blasio administration back in 2014 and 2018 to give raises to the in-service people if at some point they could save money on health care costs. So what they did was they made the retirees the fall guys for the raises that they put in for in-service people back in 2014 and 2018. Now, I can tell you that I live in Florida and in Pennsylvania. We're snowbirds. And I haven't spoken to one doctor that I have who even knows about the plan or who encouraged me to accept the plan. Each and every one of them says, if you can stay on original Medicare, do so. So that's where we are with this thing. That's my comment.
Great, thank you. Marianne, I wanted to ask you if you could tell people how they could join your organization.
Well, thank you. I have Gene Iannuzzi, who is another one of our retirees on the line with me, too. He's one of our moderators. He's a retiree in Westchester, and he's also one of our moderators on our Facebook page. We have our Facebook page, which you can find us under NYC Organization of Public Service Retirees, and we have a website, www.nycretirees.org, and there you can sign up for our newsletter, give us your email information, contact info, and also help us donation, because this is a grassroots fundraising campaign in order to be able to support the organization and its illegal bills in order to keep this fight going.
And again, could you just tell us the website again?
Yes, it's www.nyc, as in New York City, NYC Retirees, RETIREES.org. And
does your organization, I guess your meetings are held remotely?
Yes, we actually do Facebook Lives, and we've even started a YouTube page so that we can record those videos for people who are not on social media and share them in an email newsletter. The reason we started doing that is because so many seniors are not on the Internet or not on social media, do not have a computer, and that way friends and family or their caretakers can help them with that email and be able to share them with the written information, and if they can, to watch the video.
You have a very good website. I was reading it, last night, and one of the stories you highlighted was a story in the New York Daily News reporting that widows of New York City first responders who died in line of duty must pay for health insurance after the city changed their policy.
Yes.
I thought that was very, very moving. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
We started to get phone calls from some of our trustees and our advisors on our board, and they advised us, they were from fire and police, advising us that that they were receiving inquiries from the widows is if they would now have to pay for their insurance. So we looked into it. We asked OLR. We were getting different information all the time, and this doesn't make any sense. Well, finally, we asked two of our board members to communicate with OLR. They got the answer back that absolutely they would have to pay. And so we couldn't believe it. How could you do that? How could you have a spouse who lost their spouse in the line of duty now have to pay for something after promising to take care of them for the rest of their life? It's abhorrent. I can't even wrap my head around it. And these ladies that were calling us were in their 80s and 90s. I don't understand. I just don't understand it. It's callous, and for the unions to say that they thought this through and that this was the best plan without taking all of us, but especially them, into consideration, it blows my mind.
Right. There's a new mayor, obviously, in New York City now, and this policy was implemented by the old mayor or the former mayor, and I'm wondering if Mayor Adams, his administration, has any different views on this.
Well, that's a really good question, Paul. I wish I had an answer for you, and if I don't have an answer, not from a lack of trying. I mean, we've emailed, we've called, we've sent him letters, we've sent him hundreds of letters. I have had no response from the mayor, although I am still eager to have a conversation with him and sit with him to discuss this, but his people have not reached out to our people.
I know the unions, many of the unions, they have a close knit working relationship, and I'm wondering if you're getting help from the unions representing active employees.
The short answer is no. No active union is supporting our mission. We've not received a letter, a check, pat on the back, anything from an active union.
Are you surprised?
No, because unions represent active employees, and their responsibility is to negotiate for those with wages, hours, and work conditions. Because a retiree doesn't have any of those, our needs are strictly very different from theirs. So it would make complete sense that I would not hear from them because they don't represent us. In the early days of this lawsuit, an attorney that represents the UFT and the MLC made a very callous remark on the record in the court that, we didn't know what we were doing and that we should have called all of our unions and filed a grievance, that filing a lawsuit was irresponsible. Well, that's actually not the case. So I said, all right, let's play on this. He thinks he knows the right answer. I know the answer. We asked all of our retirees, hey, go call your former union and ask them to file a grievance. You know what they were told? Sorry, we don't represent you. You can't file a grievance.
That's really, amazing. I would think that the unions, the active unions representing active employees would want to get involved because as benefits are eroded,
but they don't even know, Paul.
This could be something that's going to happen all over the state and cities, school districts. This could be the new policy. So,
well, and here's the scary thing. Those unions, all of these unions ratified their last contracts with healthcare saving provisions in there without even knowing that this happened to us.
right. We have to take one more break. I'm Paul Feiner, and we're talking with the Organization of Public Service Retirees, and we'll be back right after the short break. I'm Paul Feiner.
Now, back to the Greenberg Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenberg Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Hi, I'm Paul Feiner, and it's such an interesting topic. Marianne, I wanted to ask you a question. You know, one of the reasons why taxes keep going up and up and up is because they're so expensive for all governments. To manage, and the health benefits and all the benefits that local governments have to pay for, add up. What do you say to critics who feel that if governments don't cut back on some of these benefits, it's not going to be sustainable, and they just won't have enough money to continue to offer services at affordable rates? There's taxpayers who are claiming that they're being forced out of our areas because of the high taxes.
So I can't speak to the general consensus of taxes in all different municipalities in New York State. What I can tell you is that there was a fund called the Health Insurance Stabilization Fund that was founded to help offset some of the premium costs for insurance. And that fund had been used by the unions for things that were other than health insurance premiums, and that became a problem. There's a lot of press going back over the years, going back to, we found, I believe, 2010, 2011, that the unions were using that fund and negotiating how to use it with the city of New York for raises or for any which way that they saw it fit, where the city and the unions agreed to if there was an excess. They should have allowed that excess to accrue, knowing that costs were going to go up in the future. I mean, costs don't go down in the future. That's just common sense. But they didn't save for that rainy day, and they should have. And even though that fund did have an excess, they should have allowed it to accrue and earn interest in order to be able to protect for these types of situations and not use it for something other than stabilizing health insurance premiums.
Right. You mentioned that there was somebody else who you had invited.
On my line, yes.
Is he on?
Gene Iannuzzi.
Great. Is he on right now?
I'm here, Paul. Good morning.
Great. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you got involved in this effort?
Well, for several reasons. I am a retired registered nurse, and I was also a paramedic. And I spent 20 years of service with the city between the Health and Hospitals Corporation and the City University of New York. And as a healthcare person, I've dealt with these issues of coverage and, denials and all of those kinds of things, upfront and personal, with patients. And to speak to the point that you just brought up, that this is exactly one of the reasons why I got involved. Yes, it's entirely true that municipalities have an interest in controlling costs. So then the question gets asked, well, why shouldn't why shouldn't retirees contribute towards their health insurance? And the answer is deceptive, because the answer is we already did. And we did that by working for the city of New York at wages that were lower than we could make in the private sector. For example, I can tell you that as a registered nurse working for HHC, I could easily have made $20,000 to $30,000 more working for some of the private hospitals. So my contribution and the contribution of many of the retirees has been made through years of dedicated service at wages that we understood would be lower because at the end we would benefit from what the city was then offering, which was health care coverage at no cost, right, for the rest of our retirement. So there's an answer there. And I'm sorry, sir?
Oh, hello? I'm sorry. You can continue.
No, I think that's one of the answers, is that we've already paid into it. It's not that we're opposed to seeing costs reduced, but on the other hand, if you went into any other business and you were quoted a price and then you got the product and then years later somebody came after you and said, well, wait a minute, that really wasn't the price, pay us more. You'd be outraged. You'd want to know what you were getting up front. And that's what we all did. We did it in good faith. Why I got involved is because this process of switching us over into a plan that is clearly inferior, despite what their salesmen say, is unconscionable. We should have a choice based on our prior service to stay with what we have or choose to do something else. And for some, we'll be able to afford that choice. For many, many, many others, that choice is mythical because they simply cannot afford to spend the kind of money that they're going to need to spend to keep what they have. And the last thing I'd like to say is one of the reasons I'm still in this, my wife is presently undergoing treatment for cancer, and she has been since last year. We can't take a chance at this point on changing coverage, which might deny her certain services that she's getting now. And those denials could be costly, not only in terms of money, but in terms of her health. My wife is also a healthcare professional, and both of us, we just look at these Medicare Advantage plans for what they are. They're the same things that we see hawked on TV by Joe Namath and Jimmy Walker and all these slick little marketing ads that if you had a good product, you wouldn't have to be selling it like that. And the city says that, oh, our plan isn't like theirs. Sounds to me like a lot of used car salesmen.
Right. Do we have a phone call? I think. Thank you. I think we have a phone call.
Yes, thank you. I'm a retired teacher in New York City, and I got the same information about being switched to the Advantage plan for Medicare. I have been really unable to get any clarity to a lot of the questions that I've been trying to get answered. So I'm very much interested if you could help me understand a couple of things. Number one, as a retired person on Medicare, what are the big changes that will happen to me, either in terms of premium or coverage? And the second question, I have dependents, my wife and children. Does this impact them at all, or are they still covered by the same plan?
Marianne, would you be able to answer that?
I would prefer to answer that if he would contact us off the air, because there's a lot more questions I have to ask him regarding, depending on what plan he's in, the age of his dependents, et cetera. And I also need to know what union he's in, if he's in a union, if he has a prescription plan, because those costs can change as well. So you can give him my cell phone number to reach outside, and I would be glad to help him.
Would you be able to give like an email address because there may be other listeners, and when I create a YouTube, they may actually people may have have questions. Also, people could always email me at P. Feiner, Feiner, at Greenberg, BURGHNY.com with any questions. And then I could always forward it to Marianne if you would prefer that approach.
You can even use our website, nycretirees.org. They can email us through the website. But the short answer without having all his details is these changes can impact your entire family. And this is why it's important. We have a retired police officer who retired in 1973, and he and his wife, and he has an adult disabled daughter, who are all on Medicare. That family looked to pay over $600 a month if they stayed in the new plan. And they had to, because the Medicare Advantage plan would take his daughter's, she's a Medicare and Medicaid, and she's also has a special private prescription plan, would bar her from that prescription plan. So the short answer, without knowing all of his details, is it can impact you financially for your whole family. So let's have a conversation afterwards.
Great. We only have maybe, unfortunately, another minute or so. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention that you haven't been able to talk about during this program?
I think just asking everyone to make sure that if they've never heard of this before, you go to our website. We're still hearing retirees that have not heard about this, did not get all the information from the city. Join our Facebook page, join our website, register for our emails, and reach out to us. We will help you the best that we can throughout this process. Please help donate to our cause. It's extremely important to keep the lawsuit going to help protect our benefits. And reach out to us. And we also want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to reaching more people within your listening area.
Yeah, and what I will do is we'll create a YouTube, and I'll send you a copy of it. And this way, we could continue to spread the word. I had heard about your organization from a Greenberg resident who was
wonderful
concerned and wanted to follow up as a result of that.
Well, thanks, and we'll come back if you want us back.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. I'm Paul Feiner, Greenberg Town Supervisor.